Few friendships in music history have been as powerful or as complicated as that of Paul McCartney and George Harrison. Together, they helped shape the Beatles into the most influential band the world has ever known. But behind the unforgettable harmonies and timeless songs lay a deep, sometimes painful bond that stretched from their teenage years to George's final days. Now, at 83, Paul McCartney has finally opened up about what their relationship was truly like, and his words are touching fans all over the world. Paul and George first met as young boys in Liverpool, long before fame ever entered the picture. Paul was just 15, George only 14 when they started playing music together. "We were just kids with guitars," Paul recalled. "We didn't know we were starting something that would change the world." Their friendship grew inside smoky clubs and cramped recording studios, built on shared dreams and late-night laughter. But as the Beatles rose to unimaginable fame, the pressures began to take their toll. Over the years, George sometimes struggled to find his voice in a band dominated by the songwriting duo of Lennon and McCartney. While Paul admired George's quiet talent, creative differences often led to friction. "I was probably too pushy at times," Paul admitted. "I wanted everything to be perfect, and I didn't always give George the space he deserved." Despite the tension, Paul has never hidden his admiration for George's artistry. He had this soulfulness, this depth. When he played, it came straight from the heart. After the Beatles broke up in 1970, George finally got his chance to shine on his own, and Paul couldn't have been prouder. George's solo masterpiece, All Things Must Pass, became one of the most celebrated post-Beatles albums of all time. "I remember hearing it and thinking, wow, he really did it," Paul said. "He stepped out of the shadow and showed the world who he really was." Still, like many lifelong friendships, theirs went through ups and downs. There were years when they barely spoke, and others when they reconnected with laughter and memories. Paul now admits that time and pride got in the way of saying the things that really mattered. "I wish I'd told him more often how much I loved him," he confessed softly. "We were brothers, and brothers don't always say it, but they feel it." When George was diagnosed with cancer in the late 1990s, Paul made sure to visit him as often as possible. Their final meeting remains one of the most emotional moments of Paul's life. "He was lying in bed and I just held his hand," Paul recalled tearfully. "It felt like we were those kids again, back in Liverpool, dreaming about music. There was peace between us." Since George's passing in 2001, Paul has often honored his old friend on stage, performing Something, one of George's most beautiful songs, during his concerts. "Every time I sing it, I think of him," Paul said. "I feel like he's right there with me, smiling." At 83, Paul McCartney's reflections aren't just about music. They're about love, forgiveness, and the bonds that never fade. "George wasn't just my bandmate," Paul shared. "He was my little brother. I miss him every day." Their story, from teenage dreams to global fame to quiet goodbyes, remains one of rock's most touching legacies. Because for all the fame, all the songs, and all the history, Paul McCartney's truth is simple. The Beatles ended, but the love between us never did.